over the time, the different generations, realize the importance of not simply following a tradition, to live a life apart from the tradition that has been there for a longer time. So these generations try to identify that power of liberation. They try to identify, different forms of options that they could pursue, for a better quality of life. So as reported, a few women, now who were, from the family of Devdasi, now they are practicing as nurses and different other professions. So that takes back to the initial phases when we can say the tribal women specifically realized the power of liberation or power of living a lifestyle of their own choice. This tradition, if I had to say, it's specifically, there was a report by National Commission on Women. They were trying to enumerate different Devdasis from different parts of Odisha, and they identified that even the last Devdasi recently passed away, and with her, the whole tradition curtained down. So, now the question remains, like, is it the end of the tradition that we are talking about, or is it the beginning of a new era where women are more liberated and they could talk about their opinions, they could prefer a lifestyle of their own choice, so things like that. Um, there was there was a talk with my own student. She was also saying that if we talk about the social lifestyle of the tribal women per se, she belongs to Bondo tribe. So she said that the change in the clothing pattern is also it's definitely from an anthropological lens, it's a change of the lifestyle pattern. But when we try to associate it with different facets of the community, the change of the clothing patterns were associated with the crimes against women, particularly from because there was the inflow of people from different forms of culture out there, and there was people going out, they were practicing modern form of culture, so things were happening, and crime against women gradually propped up. Now, if we talk about the sex ratio, in the present proportion, it's better, like considering the overall sex ratio, Odisha has comparatively significant sex ratio. And in fact, it consistently maintained the significant ratio across both the census schedules. But when we talk about the child sex ratio, it's not, the difference, the decadal change was not that significant. Though it was better than the national average, it was not significant, so to say. Now, there has been also an increase in the female literacy levels, but specifically talking about the tribal girls, the improvement is at a very slow pace. For instance, if we talk about the census reports from 2001 and 11, the literacy levels for the tribal females was 23.4% in 2001, which improved to roughly 20% in 2011 census. But still, it's lagging far behind the male literacy levels. And as we go by the dropout rates in the tribal girls, particularly, Odisha stands out with the maximum dropout rates as visible in the graph. And if we talk about category wise, on a national average, the scheduled tribes dropout rates is far, far, far more than the other categories altogether. So that becomes a challenge. Though we are improving on the overall female literacy rate, but the dropout rates are quite alarming. So that needs to be, taken care about. But time and again, there have been various factors that played a crucial role in the improvement. For example, um, there have been gradual efforts to improve the residential schooling and scholarship for the tribal education, especially for the tribal girls. This led to the improvement in the gross enrollment ratio and the overall female literacy rates. Then the concept of ashram schools is quite famous in Odisha. It gave a boost to the gross enrollment ratio again. Then there are pre and post metric scholarships that are available. As per the recent report in the Odisha Girls Incentive Program, there has been so far 1 lakh tribal girls enrolled. So that's quite remarkable. Then there are other schemes like Eklavya, EMRS model, Anvesha model, which is specifically for the urban education of SCs and STs. Then Akanksha model, NCC scouting, Biju Yuva Shakti Yojana, which provides laptops for the meritorious students. So many different initiatives have been taken time and again, and it is not just to improve the quality of the education or the enrollment rate, but it is also emphasizing on the physical development, the cognitive development, or so to say the peer education of the tribal girls. adolescent counseling in terms of their hygiene and sanitary habits, so things like that. But still, the challenge persists when we talk about, in the pandemic scenario, if we had to talk, the access to the smart technologies, affordability towards, a good internet service is again a major challenge, and especially for the tribal girls, the gender bias still persists. So they're not properly exposed to the whole different forms of teaching practices, or so they're quite restricted in that context that lies deep within the social connotations of these situations. Next, I want to talk about the health parameters. So a lot of initiatives have already been taken regarding improvement of health indicators, especially women development, child development, maternal health, reproductive health, adolescent health. So many different initiatives have been taken, and they're quite remarkable in that context. But when we specifically talk about tribal health, tribal women's health, we should understand three pillars of it. First being the needs, that is, you know, women have their needs in terms of their health issues, which are quite specific to tribals and quite in general, if we talk every women's issues. Then those needs to be addressed based on their belief system. That belief system is very much contextual, as in every tribal system, every tribal society, they follow a pattern of indigenous form of healing, indigenous form of diagnostics. So that belief system is actually essential to be understood in order to plan the policy, or plan the services or the programs at the larger level for those particular communities. Because for instance, if we talk about childbirth cases, we have two options, two forms of services. You can go to the institutional services or to the community based services. But when we talk about the institutional services, the challenges persist in terms of transportation, communication barriers, or they be losing out their daily wage, or different forms of issues persist, and therefore they prefer the home based or the residential services or the community based services. But again, there are challenges in terms of community based, again, because we do not have a proper trained staff, and trained staff do not have a proper access to a good quality training. So that network of services therefore needs to be improved, and this network needs to be understood when we talk about the tribal women's health, the assessment of their needs, their belief practices, and the formulation of the services accordingly. Um, Next, I want to bring into light the economic activities and the role of tribal women in the broader picture of economic activities. So there's a famous anthropologist, Veena Bhasin. She writes that, as per the hypothesis, the women contribute substantially to the primary subsistence activity, and then she's considered as higher status in the family or in the society. But if in the society the major subsistence activities are practiced by men, then probably they are comparatively at a lower status. So according to her, the status of women
Right,
entirely
Gorget running through.
a rigid concept. It changes, it's dynamic, it changes over the time. So especially in context of tribal women, because they are engaged in lot many fields, if you had to talk about agriculture or the forest producers, animal rearing practices, crafts, and even the household chores that need not be forgotten. So these different forms of activities are where the tribal women are playing their efficient role. So far, it has been reported that 80% of tribal women are currently engaged in the agricultural activities. And if we see the current progress, there's an emergence of independent entrepreneurs from the tribal women associations or the self-help groups. For instance, if we talk about a formation of a, a home-based food, a home-based snack which is being sold outside school. So that is one form of practice. Then they are producing organic producers, like they are producing and selling the organic components that are responsible for organic farming, like vermicompost and things like that. So they are emerging as they are forming SHGs, the self-help groups and associations, and reflecting an independent entrepreneurship altogether. Now, if we talk specifically about these SHGs, they're quite effective. They have provided the space for women's participation both at the household and the community level in their socioeconomic and as well as the political spheres, because they are developing their network not just within their society, but across different societies. If we go by the annual report of Pragati, an NGO from the Koraput district, in 2018-19, there were 3,834 women members identified, and in early basis, basically, in especially the early in agricultural period, they were marketing the non-timber forest producers, and they were earning through the value addition services, and altogether there was a profit of rupees 35,000 in that year. So that was quite remarkable. Now, apart from these activities, basically, they have a very crucial role in, in revolts and in movements. For instance, in January itself, there was a report on a revolt of tribal women altogether, not just one community, from different communities. They were revolting because railway authorities, they laid railway tracks, irrespective of their consent taken by the local people, and there was no, a recognizable compensation was not provided to them. So in a revolt, they all together, laid themselves on the tracks, and they were revolting in a very silent manner. But because it is attached to them, the forest is their home. They are the forest dwellers, and more than that, it is their familial sphere that is affected when a forest is being destroyed or some development initiative is being taken up. Like, for example, the mining activities also. So their revolt has been quite prominent. The other dimension where women's movement or women's role has been quite efficiently proven is in terms of disaster management teams. Like we already know, being located in a coastal area, Odisha is prone to annual events of cyclones, and this year also Amphan was there. So Odisha government has specifically taken their initiative in training a cadre of women to deal with these disaster related responses, especially during and after, in terms of recoveries and rehabilitations to be provided. And there was a report from Ganjam district, which has proven that their efficiency is quite effective in terms of disaster related management. So there's one thing. Now I cannot emphasize on all different aspects because time is also limited. So I'll keep two things open to the research scholars who are out there listening to me right now, which could be explored further in terms of tribal women context specifically. First, being the role of NGOs, the role of civil societies or the voluntary associations, understanding the political economy of these organizations in context of the tribal women, or because there are a lot of developmental projects taking up. Specifically for the women's health, reproductive health, adolescent health, lot many parameters of health, these development initiatives are being taken up and being promoted through these NGOs, so that net political economy of these civil societies could be really understood. And second thing is the interface, the growing interface between the local, or say the tribal and the non-tribal communities, because there's a growing, interaction, or that width is slightly reducing because we are having first we are undergoing displacement of these tribal communities, then they're relocated time and again. So quite largely the interface is improving between the tribal and the non-tribal people. So that interface could be really understood in the different context, and that could be a research area that could be further explored. But when we talk about the overall challenges, they are still persisting in terms of the communication barriers. As reported, 50% of women are still illiterate. Uh, Other than that, they have their socio-cultural beliefs, which are creating a hindrance for tribal girls. And apart from that, there are social levels which are not just specific to the tribal women, but also to the women community out there across the globe. So these needs to be first tackled down, and therefore we need to think about the development parameters at large. If in my concluding remarks, I'll say women's role has laid the basic foundation in the tribal lives. Recognizing them, respecting them, not the tribal women per se, but women out there, everybody, they have to be respected, they have to be recognized, their voice have to be heard. That becomes the utmost need of the hour. Their freedom of expression, their equal participation has to be understood contextually in their own terms. Though lot many efforts are still being put in place, it becomes the ultimate time to create a platform where we all, as a larger audience, we could hear them out loud. I'll take few final moments to share few inspirational stories from the tribal communities. She is Anupriya Madhumita Lakra. She is an around tribal woman from Maoist affected Malkangiri district of Odisha, and she recently became the first commercial pilot from Odisha. Then she is Pallavi Darua. She was crowned as the first tribal queen in India's first test held in 2018. So far, I was not aware that there is such an event also. So that's quite interesting, and that's quite creating a platform out there from different. Lipika Singharai, she is a tribal woman from Ho community of Mayurbhanj district. She has won in her career of um, filmmaking, direction of over 7 years. She has won 4 awards, and basically she's representing the nature, the local tribes, the ethical values of different tribal communities. That's quite commendable. Then we have Chandrani Murmu. She is a tribal woman from Murmu tribe of Kionjhar district, and she has become the youngest MP in the 2019 elections we had recently in the state of Odisha. And taking the last few moments, I just want to appreciate different art and culture of the heritage represented by women of different tribal communities. And I feel a pride in representing this enriching culture of Odisha. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lochan. I think very interesting description of different tribes and the fact that development is catching up and the effort of number of SHGs is making the distance between tribals and non-tribals less and less. And it's very interesting to see these few faces that you put up. They've achieved fame and glory in their own fields, and we are really proud of them. I think more effort is needed to this direction. We should really integrate. They should be really integrated with the society at large. I will now request. By the way, we have now 73 participants in this Zoom meeting, including I can see some from as far off as California and USA. Dr. Surya Patnaik and Anjalika Patnaik, and also you can see welcome Justice Ananga Patnaik, Mr. Bakshi, ex-Chief Secretary Odisha, a lot of other people. So I'm sure that there are many others also watching on YouTube. So I hope you will all take something and empathize with the tribal people and do our own bit, everyone to collectively do something to really integrate them with the rest, with the society at large. I'll now call on Professor Bipin Jojo. We are really proud of him. He is a professor of social science in the School of Social Work at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. He has done. He is an authority on tribal affairs, and he has done his seminal study on the ashram schools, the education in tribal Maharashtra and the ashram schools. He has also been a lecturer, attended Tempri College in Finland, and he is the founder director of a Society for Tribal Tribal India. So may I now call on Dr. Vipin Jojo. And by the way, he is from Sundargarh, if I am not mistaken.
Yeah, so, you are right, sir.
So you can unmute yourself and you can start.
Okay. May I share the screen?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Yeah. Can you see the slide?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. First of all, I thank Odisha Forum, especially Sri Gokul Patnaik, the president of Odisha Forum, for having me in this Odisha Forum discussion. And I also like to thank Mr. Charudatta Panigrahi, who was in touch with me and coordinating for this. And especially I thank Prafulla Bhai, who referred my name for this discussion. And it is so nice to have Prafulla Bhai, Achyut Bhai. I think only these two people know me until today about me and a bit of my work. So I thank especially Prafulla Bhai to introduce Odisha Forum. As the theme of this evening has been kept as dilemma of development, travel culture at the crossroad. As Sri Gokul Patnaik said, I come from Sundargarh. So it will be a bit of my own experience. It will be a bit of my own research or my own the PhD work and other work in Orissa and my other research work subsequently, which has been there both in Orissa and outside Orissa. So I'll try to complete my presentation I'm sorry. Most of the tribes are located in 6 major districts, which are the southern states, southern part of Odisha, and then northern part of Odisha. Sorry. Yeah, so the district of Malkangiri, Koraput, Navrangpur, Kalahandi, Raigada, Kandhamal, and in the northern side, Mayurbhanj and Sundargarh. These are the major states, but we have also tribes living or Adivasis living in other parts of the state, like we can see Sambalpur, Devgarh, Balangir, Bargarh, and even in the coastal belt. But if we see the southern part of Orissa and the northern part of Orissa, I think most of the tribes who are distributed in this region. And luckily, or not luckily, by the constitutional provisions, wherever we have the tribal population more than 50%, the Constitution of India recognizes them as part of the fifth scheduled area. So we have six erstwhile Koraput district, including erstwhile, I mean the distributed, fragmented or distributed districts, which are earlier part of Koraput, and Sundargarh, Mayurbhanj. Altogether, it becomes 6 districts which are part of fifth schedule, and we have 7 districts which are partially included in the fifth schedule area. Why I'm saying, I think some subsequent discussions and the panel discussion very well, and so it becomes very significant to inform or to mention this aspect. Uh, though we have about 22.8% of tribal population in the state, if you look at the distribution across the state, I just said geographical distribution, I said, but in terms of numbers, if you say, we have the largest tribe called Koms, who are about 16 lakhs. On the other hand, we have other PVTG groups like or other tribal groups like Chenchus, who are just about 13, or Baigas, they are just about 522 as per the 2011 census. So in one hand, we have the smallest possible tribe. On the other hand, we have the large tribe like Kons, who are 16 lakhs, Gons, who are about 9 lakhs, Santals are also almost 9 lakhs. So we have the other range of large tribes. And we have 62 tribes Out of that, 13 of them are called PVTG. So I'm trying to highlight the regional distribution as well as the demographic diversity or variation across these 62 tribes. Now, when it comes to development, or we talk of development, in post-independent area, what are the tribal development approach we had? So immediately after independence, we know that the major challenges we had with regard to consolidation politically, as well as the eradication of poverty and how we can get into the fast economic growth. And also with regard to the tribes, three major aspects I would say. The whole tribal development approach was focusing around the socio-economic, cultural, and political development of tribes or Adivasis. And second aspect was the protection against exploitative forces like bonded labor or child marriage and so on and so forth. And then third one was economic growth. So these three aspect was the major focus as part of the tribal development approach in the post-independent area. And whole of this aspect was, I would say, within the broad framework of isolation, integration, and assimilation framework. Now, how do we get this isolation, integration, assimilation framework? Now, much before independence, there was a British missionary turned Indian called Berwick Alvin, who came to India in 20s, and subsequently he became the follower of Gandhiji. And later on, he became the advisor to Pandit Nehru for the tribal policy. And even he got married to tribal women in Madhya Pradesh because of his continuous engagement with the tribal issues in Madhya Pradesh. So when he started work in Madhya Pradesh in the Abujband area. So he was working with Baigas. And based on his engagement and his work, he felt that no, tribals should be kept or should be allowed to live in isolation, because based on his experiences and research, he found that wherever there is an interaction, wherever there is non-tribals coming and interacting or visiting the tribal area, there is an element of appropriation of ignorance, appropriation of lack of knowledge, either it is resources, money, and other written traditions, which were mostly driven in the administrative systems. So Elvin argued that the tribals should be allowed to live as they are, or should be kept allowed to be in isolation. And so he took a position of isolationist position. To counter this, we had another post-independent nationalist scholar called G.S. Gore, who was a well-known sociologist. He countered that no, the tribals are part of our larger Indian society. They are the part of the backward Hindu society, so they should be assimilated in the larger society. So in this two extreme position, Pandit Nehru proposed that no, I think somewhere it is necessary because it was part of the larger political integration process and economic integration process. So he proposed that no, we should not have that kind of extreme position. Rather, we should go for integration. Try to integrate all the people, irrespective of location, irrespective of size, irrespective of stages of development. We should allow to have their own spaces and to be integrated with the larger in India. So with this debate, I think subsequently Elvin also changes his position when he starts working in 50s and 60s in Northeast, and even G.S. Ghore also tries to mend his position of assimilation and to go for integration. Um, so we have this framework for the tribes which were followed in India. And so with this kind of framework, we have that the tribal development blocks which started in the 50s to initiate the integrated tribal development program, right from the infrastructure to home-based economic improvement and other development in terms education, in terms of economy, and other kind of development programs. And subsequently in 5-year plan, we see that tribal sub plan was introduced, which which focus that proportionate to the tribal population, and the department of the government should allocate that much of that percentage of money for the tribal development. So, and based on the fifth schedule provisions, subsequent many legislations comes in for the governance and participation of the tribals in the development process. And second aspect is the
Hello.
hello. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello.
we can hear you. Please go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. Okay. So I guess
So Jojo, any problem from that side?
This connectivity issue.
I think we have lost the link.
Perhaps Mr. Jojo has been disconnected. So please go for next speaker.
Yeah, I think I was waiting. I think someone is trying to connect on iPhone. Is that Mr. Jojo? Is that Professor Jojo on iPhone?
No, I'm Ashok Acharya.
Okay, sorry. Then I think we'll next our next agenda is panel discussion. I'll hand it over to Mr. Charudat Panigrai to start the panel discussion with the request that in case Professor Jojo comes back, we will suspend for the timing and hear him out and then continue the panel discussion. But meanwhile, we can start with the panel.
Thank you, sir.
Charu.
Thank you, Shri Patnaik. Good evening, Samastanku Namaskar. We are grateful to Odisha Forum and our ever contemporary thought leader, Shri Gokul Patnaik, for having such topical discussions. And you know why it is topical. Orissa with all our mineral wealth, with all our divinity, with all our roots connected to our indigenous communities, can't be more intense, more serious than ever before. And also for the fact that we have such accomplished and specialized panelists on our panel today who are also practitioners. ସେମାନେ ଆଦିବାସୀ ଜୀବନ ସହିତ ବହୁତ ଓତପ୍ରୋତ ଭାବେ ଜଡ଼ିତ. So ground rule 1, you would not probably hear more rhetoric or jargons, but more of action points, because they're all in the thick of action. And second, there is a flow that you've decided. When you have such high-powered panelists, we have thought of a flow which essentially tells us three major things. So the output of this panel discussion would be, one, we would have much better idea about who we are talking about. What is the identity of the indigenous communities that we are talking about, the Adivasis that we are talking about? Second, hello.
Yeah, continue.
Second, what we do to secure their livelihoods, what we do to ensure that they are sustainable. And third is, of course, when we do this, what is the lens? How do they change their culture? How do we help them adapt or not adapt? Because there's an irony here. The irony is that we are all tribals. We all are tribals, but over a period of time, over centuries, we have distanced ourselves so much from our ilk that now we say it is our culture, our mainstream culture, and their culture. So ours, theirs has actually widened this gap, and that's why we are talking about socio-economic, politico, geopolitico kind of divide. One. Second is that very strange that we owe everything from our divinity, from our GDP contribution, to our mineral resources, to the future of our children, to the future of our business, to 1 trillion economy, 5 trillion economy. The entire gamut of activities and things are being contributed to directly by our indigenous communities, and that's what we are going to talk about today. And that's why I would like to mention a very famous quote, I mean, which is very apt for all of us. It's easy to sit up and take notice, but it's very difficult to get up and take action. So now we are talking about the people who are there in the middle of action, and I would like to start with Sri Gadadhar Parida. So I welcome Sri Parida to this panel discussion. I also welcome Sri Achyut Das to this panel discussion. I also welcome Sri Praful Samantray to this panel discussion. I'll start off with Sri Parida, and we have set ourselves a timeline of about 45 minutes from now, about 40 to 43 minutes. So I'll have a couple of rounds of pointers to all our panelists, and we should not exceed 45 minutes. And if we exceed each one of us or any one of us exceeds time limit, I'll raise my hand like this, so we'll know that that's the time to stop. So with Sri Parida, we have had long discussions, sir, and we have discussed about why do we now say that indigenous communities are divided? How do we segregate them? Who tells us that X is Adivasi and X is not Adivasi? Now, you know, Agency Tracts Interest and Land Transfer Act of 1917. Now, we all know that in 1936, when Mr. RCS Bell was the first ICS officer, was the first collector of Koraput, and he had this inclusive idea of Adivasis. So when he said, or when he wrote in the Gazetteer that an Adivasi cannot, or a tribal cannot sell land to a non-tribal, he meant only tribals. He did not mean X, Y, Z, A, B, C tribals. So how do you, sir, look at this? Because you've been an advocate of inclusiveness of tribals. And do you think, you have mentioned this earlier also, a few people maybe in Bhubaneswar, maybe in a central place, decide the fate of our indigenous family? What do you have to say on this, sir? Your thoughts.
Thank you for the nice introduction. I can only say that, as you have mentioned, all our origin belongs to the Rishi ashrams, where people of the urban areas, of the elite class of the people. Their children went there to read, and the tribal people were there around the ashram. They also read the same thing. The basic difference is the elite class, they knew writing and they recorded it. The tribals, they had only spoken language, no written language, so no script. So they had to pass it over from generation to generation by word of mouth. So the root is same. It is the same tree that is giving fruits. Now it is tasting different. Secondly, when we are speaking of these tribal communities, as it is well known, out of the 62 communities, our undivided Koraput district accounts for more than 50 tribal groups, as has been recorded in the census. Still, we seldom think that whosoever becomes the administrator should have a sympathetic attitude towards these people, the son of the soil, who have been forced to migrate from place to place. Past the hydrocity project, our Machkun Dam came. So in the Jalapur reservoir, many villages were submerged. So the people were instructed to you go down the dam. Then in the 60s, this Chitrakonda Dam, Balimala Dam project came up. Again, this entire 80 kilometers of vast expanse of the Machkun River, it got submerged. Again, they were shifted. People, those who came to Odisha side, they are comparatively better off. Those who went to the other side, Andhra border, they don't have a road for a pretty long time. Recently only we have this Gurupriya bridge, and we have had some communication with them. Now, I have always told one thing, that when you are deciding the fate of a human being, we should not treat that it is a file, F-I-L-E. We should see a life, L-I-F-E, in that F-I-L. So that when you are taking a decision, you become conscious that that is going to be the consequences of my decision. The Britishers didn't have much time to think about the welfare of these people, but still they had the sympathy that these people are suffering. So they had enacted one act, the Hill Tribes Act, in the year 1917, which came into force from the year 1918. And the government of Odisha, after creation of the state of Odisha and Koraput as a separate district, they have ratified it more or less with minor modifications in the year 1943. But in 1950, when our constitution, 5th schedule, 6th schedule, etc. came out, now somehow these people found their names missing. Their groups have been deleted from the list of scheduled tribes. So some of the tribes, like the Ranas, the Malis, the Doras, the Loras, those were in the hill tribes and had the benefit of protection, so suddenly they found that they are no more protected by the state. And who took this decision? These people were never consulted. And the expert group, whosoever might have recommended to delete their names, they have relied on one basic record. We call it the record of rights maintained by the revenue department, the settlement people.
Absolutely.
And in the field, I have seen how the settlement officials have decided the fate of these people. Suppose I went to the Amin, who is the God for me, who measures my land parcel and asks me my name, my father's name, then he asks, what is your caste? Jati kaun? So naturally, I don't understand what is Jati, because that is alien to our culture. I said, sir, I am Parja. You are Raja, I am Parja. So I became Parja.
Right.
And
Very well said.
suppose I cannot say that also. So the man will ask me, do you take beef? I said, no, beef, oh my God, how can I take it? So he said, I don't belong to the lower caste, higher caste Hindu, because I don't take beef, and according to my prejudice. And these records, they become our Bible. Seeing on those records, we take many of the decisions which ultimately affects our people. The consequences of what my forefathers had said before the Amin, now I am facing, my children will continue to face. And these agitations about inclusion in the tribal category, etc. Why this is become so persistent? Mainly because there is some benefit associated with these classifications. And in the larger interest of the state, what harm we have done to the state of Odisha? I've been to this Kutia group of villages, as you know. So I asked the people, what you are doing here, where you are, your son is reading? No, sir, he is reading in Andhra Pradesh. Why? We have a tribal school here in Kutia itself, residential school. So your children will get free food, free clothing, free reading, writing material, everything, and some stipend. So why you want him to read in Andhra Pradesh? He said, sir, I am.
We lost connectivity.
Line was very low, very bad. Okay,
So
carry on, please.
Yeah, we would certainly welcome
Yes,
Shepard.
now I can hear you. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. So I don't know where the link went out. Anyway,
Yeah,
I will
okay.
continue from
Please, yeah, please carry on.
the children of our people, Odia people, now they are living in Andhra Pradesh. They are getting all the benefits of the hill tribes. The list of hill tribes have been adopted in Andhra Pradesh in toto. And the same is with our Chhattisgarh. But in Odisha, because it related to only a small backward district like Koraput in those days, 1950, no sensible gentleman from Bhubaneswar would like to come. Then capital of Odisha was Cuttack. No sensible.
We'll just give half a minute and we go to Sri Achyut Das. Sri, now I
Can you hear me, sir?
hello.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. But sir, can we continue in the next round?
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, can we have the other panelists? So now I would request Sri Achyut Das. Achyut bhai, now we heard that it's mostly man-made.
One second. Professor Jojo has joined back.
Okay.
Would you like to go back to him?
Sure, but we'll ask him to wrap up as soon as possible, so that.
Yeah, let Mr. Gadadhar Parida wrap up.
No, he's already wrapped up. So we'll get back to him in the second round.
Okay.
So Dr. Jojo, would you like to carry on and wrap up? Can you hear us? I think there's a connectivity issue. So now we should go to Sri Achyut Das till we get back Dr. Jojo again. Achyut bhai, how, I mean, now we know that it's all man-made and we have done this for obvious reasons. We have made it very bureaucratic. We have called them as their culture, our culture, mainstreaming, etc. We used all kind of jargons. But what is your thought? How do you see natural resources management key to tribal life and the changing tribal context? Because you have spent decades fortifying and securing livelihoods and securing natural resources management for our indigenous families. What's it, bhai? He's not able to unmute. Okay. I'll just see 1 second. I'll just see if I can unmute you. I think I request you, Patnaik, to unmute Shri Achyut Das.
Yeah, all participants can unmute themselves.
No, he's not. He's finding it difficult, so he's saying that he can't. For some reason, he is not able to do that.
Arjun, Arjun.
We
No,
can
he's
see him now. Can you hear? Can you hear
Yeah,
us?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
yes,
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Patnaik.
yes,
Hello.
yeah.
Hello, everybody. I must thank Odisha Forum, Mr. Rakul Patnaik, Charu, to take me on board as one of the panelists. Actually, I am not a tribal, so I always question myself to express uh, anything very, what you call very correct on the tribal issues. You see, if you look at this livelihood system in tribal areas, where I'm there for last, 40 years, since 1980, inspired by Mr. Gopinath Mahanti's two books, Paroja and Amritar Santan. I have my very distinct, clear and biased views. You may agree or disagree. Sometimes government doesn't agree. Sometimes the corporates also do not agree when they come with a kind of agenda. But I have always taken a very pro-tribal stand, and I'm known for that. So what is the lesson that I've learned in last 40 years? If I will compare between 1980 and 2020, you see there are some indications of development, so-called development, roads and electricity, mobile phones, gene banks, modern market system coming to the area. But what is most disturbing, there are some of the basic indicators in tribal areas have been really very dismal. Look at some of the nutritional aspects, health aspects, IMR, MMR, stunting, wasting, literacy, as well as look at the scale of displacement. Look at the scale of migration. So something is wrong somewhere. Basically, the sustainable livelihood has been dependent on three issues, as far as I understand. One issue is definitely the development issues, so-called economic development, socio-economic development. They have land, water, forest, natural resources. How they can utilize, they have been utilizing for generations. They have an ecosystem which has been devastated by people like you and me, government, corporate. And this ecosystem has destabilized their sustainable livelihood as you look at today. This is clearly written on the wall. You go to any village, you can see them, how things have been devastated. The second important point that I always look at is the literacy and political literacy. You have to understand the context. What is education in the tribal context? What is political education also in tribal context? That has been a debate. We have been working on this field still to find a correct road. Because I see that forces coming and destabilizing their learning process. And things are being imposed from outside. There are factory schools these days being established by who and the government also. So this is not the correct way, if I have to put it very boldly. The third most important thing is the governance system. This has also a bearing on sustainable livelihood. The governance means what has been the constitutional provisions as per fifth schedule areas, the PESA Act, the role of tribal advisory council, the role of the governor. These are all also governance issues, and there has been a lot of erosion of this governance system, which has led to the rise of left-wing extremism, which is, everybody is disturbed about that. So we have been trying in our own way. We are NGOs, very small little NGO, but there are mighty forces like government, and now the corporates are in after globalization in these tribal areas. Look at Koraput, look at Keonjhar, look at Sundargarh. This so-called onslaught on the national resource base, which the tribals have full authority. There has been a lot of impact on the tribal livelihoods as well as cultural identity.
Tribal
approach. So we have to go back to the basics. This we have been trying. My organization, Agrami, has been trying since last 40 years to build up a system which is successful. How to make tribals stand on their feet and assert. Basically, this assertion is not instigation. If people say, look, the land is mine, the tribals will say, look, the land is mine, the forest is mine. This has been our own, kind of heritage. This should not be taken as a rebellion or a kind of instigation. So when there has been land acquisition, can you imagine that in Koraput, the displacement, people have been displaced twice and without any rehabilitation. You come to Koraput areas and you can see this displacement without rehabilitation everywhere. There are cases and cases of destitution. And now the tribal livelihood system also is being threatened by another market forces, like this commercialization of agriculture and plantation. Tribal areas have been given by the government, and also there are many kinds of irregularities. So, which has been the subsistence agriculture, sustainable agriculture, has been led to a chemical agriculture. This has basically, that disturbed their ecosystem.
Thank you, Mr. Das. We'll again come back to you in the second round. Thank you so much. Point noted, and we know what you're meaning, and we know how we have devastated their life systems essentially. And now I would request Sri Praful Samantray to give his thoughts about what next. I mean, what about the culture, the identity, the entitlement of indigenous people next? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Praful Dada, can you hear me? I think. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello.
See him. I don't see him.
I also don't see him. We'll go back to Sri Parida.
No,
So
I think
Your mic is off.
let's talk to Mr. Professor Jojo. By the time
we'll finish up with
all of them may come back.
Yes.
Then we'll have the second round.
Yeah. Oh, no, Mr. Samantra writes centrally muted. So he's also he needs unmuted to be unmuted. So I think you as the host can unmute him.
You are co-host also, you can do that.
No, I'm trying, but it's not happening.
Everyone can unmute.
Yes, now I just unmute.
Yes.
Because I am unable to unmute. That
No,
is central, it is locked.
Yes. So let me let me get back to you and where I had
Yes.
started off. You are known globally as the conscience keeper of indigenous communities. You have been struggling against the onslaught. You have been trying to help them with their entitlement, with their sense of dignity, with the sense of living, and you're also looking at some kind of a quid pro quo from large scale business houses. So what's your thought on the culture, the identity, the entitlement as they change time, or they change the socio-economic reality? What's your thought on this?
Thank you, Charu. I would like to also express my hearty thanks to Gokul Babu, who has initiated this is a very, very interesting debate, and is very necessary also. And I would also welcome to all the listeners and participants in this discussion. And I also thank to Dr. Luchna and Jojo, and I would like to listen also Jojo. You would have, I think it would have been better to listen him, then we should discuss. Now I would like to extend what Achut Babu has already told, that because the education, the development, the livelihood system. But I would like to start from the Forest Right Act's preamble. You know that the Forest Right Act, that is to give the right to recognize the right to the forest dwellers, not only the tribals, but also non-tribals who are residing there with the tribals inside the forest. That the preamble says that the entire last after 56 years, I think 2006, after 56 years of our constitution that we adopted in 1956, January 26, that the historical injustice has been done to the tribal community in India. I think that should be the basic thinking of ours, at least. What historical injustice has done? Not only in British period into 1927, that the forest was belonging to the tribal community, and it was taken to that colonial government, and it was a great injustice. But even after 1948 and 47, that we got independent, we are a sovereign state, and we have constitutional, and even a single person or two were there as a tribal representative in a constitutional assembly. But still then, those people are not with the tribal communities' culture, everything, but they have provided the fifth schedule to recognize that the entire natural sources belong to tribal community, because they know also, because it is a historical perspective and for future generation, both that to integration of our culture, of everything, the resources, how to be protected, that they've given the 50th schedule, because 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 they know also in the entire world also that we know. Okay. We know also that the natural resources, the nature is served in hands of indigenous community, the tribals in India also. So, but what happened after these 50 years, 56 years? Why injustice is done in independent India? Because we have exploited them. We took our resources in the name of development, and they are being deprived of their own resources, those who are the owners. So that is my point. We have to accept this. And in between, you see that after globalization, after this 90s, and especially after 2000, this beginning of the 21st century, that Indian development paradigm that have been bifurcated by the previous, that at least by under the Prime Minister of Nehru thing, though we have not achieved the socialism, or we can't say that Congress was a socialist party, but still then there was a line of, what I say, that a line of control, that public sector, the public establishment, natural resources are more important, and we have to see that where we have to invest also very economically, that will not harm also the resources. So, but that is not, that didn't happen after the 2090s globalization. And we think that, you see, when we think of the development, when a project, if just a project with investment comes to the tribal area because of there is mining, mineral resources, forest resources, then we talk of the development. And in what way we say the development? Now, this project which is totally wrong, lie, and also we also, it is a hypocrisy that we do, we betray them, because this displacement, that development induced displacement takes place, forceful displacement takes place. Why I would like to say that what you ask is, we have to recognize that even world, even globally, we see where there is indigenous people, and we have the tribals in Odisha or anywhere in Odisha, in India, that their identity, their culture, their economic and social security is linked with the land, forest, and water, the natural resources. That we have to accept. But our planners, they do not think so. They use that term that it is, we want to bring them to mainstream. That is injustice again. We do not understand them. We should not use word that mainstream. There is a vast difference. So for attitude is concerned, their attitude, their identity, their beliefs with the nature, they worship the nature. We the other religions worship something else in name of God. But in name of God, they worship nature. So how can you separate to say that they will have to come to the mainstream? So we can develop them. We have not educated till now. The basic education, and the education must be based upon their also the natural resources, their forest, their fields, because even Mahatma Gandhi, what he told that Nai Talin, Mahatma Gandhi has told that the education must start with the people's resources. It's a village resources, village economy. Similarly, forest economy, the tribal forest economy. So that education should start from them with their language. We don't have it. We have law that we should provide basic education, primary education with their language, but we do not do it till now. We want everything that mainstream. So that is a killing, that is annihilation of their culture. That is also injustice to their future and to their, that's my point. Secondly, that I want to also identify. So why there is I think the endless investment with the area, development, everything development. We don't oppose development, but my question is, for what development, for who? Development on what basis? Development of what kind? That is more important. We need, I don't know, we need steel plant, but to what extent we can use iron resources, destroying the forest, destroying the water resources? In what extent we can use bauxite for aluminium so that we can develop? But because there is aluminium, bauxite, so we can use everything. No, bauxite is not for aluminium. Bauxite is a role from this porous metal. It is scientific process. It is, so nature is also science. Nature is the mother of science. So nature says that this is a gift of nature. Where there is bauxite, there is a perennial source of water streams throughout the world. If you want to finish it, then we will also finish that. But is now the most crisis is global warming and also climate change. So when we say that when climate change, global warming, and tribal development, and mainstream development, we have to identify, we have to lines of thinking, lines of actions, to which line, if we cross the line, we are going to harm something in the name of development. So for tribal circumcision.
Thank you.
That is more important for us.
Thank you, Sri Samitra. I'll come back again to you in the second round. So now we'll get back to a point well taken, because we always remember indigenous tribes when we want something from them. They are so rich, they are so progressive that somebody had said that we are scared of them probably because they are so progressive. And when we want big money, big business, we run to them. They don't come to us, but we run to them. So we leave it at that till we come back again. Now I would request Mr. Parida. I can see him.
Should we have Professor Jojo's
Okay, if Miss
come in?
Professor Jojo, so Dr. Jojo, are you here?
Yeah, yeah, I'm there.
Okay, if you could please wrap up, that would
Yeah.
be helpful.
Yeah, yeah, I'll make it very short. Just
Dr. Jojo, you were talking about isolation, integration, and assimilation.
Yeah.
The 3 stages.
okay, okay, okay. Thank you.
କୌଣସି କାରଣ ଗ୍ୟାରେଜ ଗଲା ସେଟା ବି ଲେগে ଆସିବ
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think I was talking. As part of this process, I think we all our development programs, all our schemes, and whole initiatives I think revolve around this framework: isolation, integration, assimilation. So isolationists talked about that they should be left alone, and assimilationists say that no, they should be integrated, or they should be brought in to the part of the dominant larger society. And somewhere in between, this idea of integration comes in. And so a whole of our development programs revolving around this. So as part of the socio-economic, cultural, political program, we have number of schemes, programs. Either it is tribal subplan or any other major program for the tribal seats, tribal subplan. And so with that, several socioeconomic development programs have been initiated. However, we know that what is the status of human development indicators with reference to the tribes today. Because HDI, if you look at infrastructure development index, you look at, I think most of the, almost all the tribal districts are far below the other districts. So they have developed. There has been change ever since the independence. But if we see the development index, I think they are far behind the compared to our other population. Say, for example, literacy. Now, Southern Orissa, you look at. Southern Orissa literacy is below 50%. Sundargarh.
Please speak into the microphone, Dr. Jojo. Please speak into the microphone.
Sorry. Yeah. So if you look at geographically, Southern Orissa, which happens to be one of the most tribal populated districts, their literacy seems to be less than 50%. Except Sundargarh, where we can see the literacy is around 60 or above 60%, I think, among the tribal areas. So literacy seems to be much lesser than the average population. In the same way, poverty, below poverty line, if you look at regional distribution, if you look at, I think, southern region, it is found among the tribes, it is about 83% of the tribes in Southern Orissa are below poverty line. In the same way, in Northern Orissa, Mayurbhanj, Sundargarh, around 73% of the tribes living below poverty line. So if we look at all the development programs, I think they are still far behind. The second point is we have many legislation to protect against any kind of exploitative measures like money lending, land alienation, forced labor, atrocity, so on and so forth. We have many legislation, but we data shows either it is Minister of Rural Development with regard to land alienation, or Ministry of I think Home, it gives the kind of atrocity cases being registered. So we seem somewhere still there also we are falling short. And then we have the economic growth for the nation, which I think Professor Bhai as well as have spoken about. I do not want to talk much, but if you look at this map, what does it show? So the left side, the net area is the schedule area, which Professor Bhai was referring to, and the green is showing the forest cover. Okay, and the right side, the dots looks at shows the minerals or the mines which are there. So if you look at, there is a juxtaposition of schedule area, forest area, and bit of mineral resources. And so obviously our industrial zones in the state are categorized or planned around or proposed around this area. And several MOUs have been signed, several initiatives, investments have been proposed. And so when we see a kind of investment coming in, the kind of issues I think Professor has talked, I do not want to repeat. But we go to Raukela Steel Plant, that we have displaced, and the places where they have been resettled, one would be finding so shocked to see even after 70 years,
Yes.
the condition is very, very pretty bad. Same way, Hirakud Dam was the first large development project after independence. The many people who were displaced from Hirakud Dam have been displaced multiple times. And there are still, many of the people are still waiting for their due resettlement rehabilitation. In the same way, I have traveled to Rengali Dam displaced people. I have traveled to Upper Kalaf Dam project displaced people. So in the large development projects, we see the kind of response by the state to mitigate the consequences seems to be far behind expected. And so in recent past, the kind of investment coming in, people do not have much hope that state will respond or state will take care of their concerns. And that's why I think we see across the globe, including state of Odisha, many tribals groups, many Adivasi groups, community groups are registering. Professor Bhai very well part of many of such initiatives. Achut Bhai also has been part of many of such initiatives. So there are assertion and demanding that no, we do not want this development. Is this development for us? And if this is the development, whose development is it you are referring to? And whose cost? At whose cost? So I think these are some of the questions. I think they are flagging off through their resistance and through their struggles. And so I come back to the last point, which I had started in the beginning, the point which we were trying to integrate or assimilate. In this process, what happened is that when we see today, when they were isolation, when we look back, I think that is the time they had the best time. They enjoyed the freedom. They had the command over their resources. They had peaceful life, the most unpolluted time. But when we are getting into the integration or assimilation, they're absorbed and subsumed in the larger development process or as part of the larger society. And somewhere they are living very, very degraded life, I would say. Most of I'm not talking about people like me, but most of the tribal communities are in the difficult situation. And so consequences is what? You can say that yes, there are many employment generated through this employment, but you can see in Sundargarh Keonjhar area, the kind of pollution through the sponge and factory, the cement factories. one cannot live in that surroundings. That is one aspect. Secondly, recently, I think because of the corona, we came to know the number of people who have migrated outside Odisha. We knew that yes, Surat is the hub of Oriya people who have migrated. But at least personally, I didn't know the volume of people who migrated from Sundargarh, Odisha. Around 50,000 people registered who had migrated outside Sundargarh district. And we came to know that they were not migrating only for domestic work, but they have migrated largely now into the garment industry in Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Delhi region. Huge number of girls and boys are migrating to the garment sector. Other than that, fishing, Goa, Gujarat, industry. So in this process, what is happening? That the claim with regard to the employment generation or the development for the district or for the state somehow gets a question mark that whether it is developing the communities which have sacrificed. And interesting, last one point I would say that Sundargarh district, we try to compare that which are the places from where people have migrated. Interestingly, the people have migrated from the blocks which are the most industrialized district blocks. Bisra block, Latikata block, Kuarmunda block. These are the most industrialized blocks in the Sundargarh district. And maximum number of people have migrated from Sundargarh from these blocks. Interesting. So it looks like that we might integrate them, we might assimilate them. What happens to their culture? What happens to identity?
Thank you, Dr.
I think these are some of the questions I think it is raising through this their registration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jojo. I hate to intervene like this, but in the paucity of time, we have to do this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Jojo. And all this would be documented. And thank you so much for your inputs. Very practical. We appreciate that. Now we would go back to Shri Parida. ଆପଣ ବହୁତ ବର୍ଷ ଧରି କୋଟିଆ ପଞ୍ଚାୟତ ପାଇଁ you have been doing advocacy and you are actually looking at all those 21 villages in Kotia Panchayat to be enfolded in Orissa. You're also looking at entitlement of indigenous communities, how we are taking care of them through the Kotia advocacy and through the Kotia initiative. So ତା ବିଷୟରେ କିଛି କହିବା ପାଇଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ଅନୁରୋଧ ଶ୍ରୀ ପରିଡ଼ା।
थैंक यू अपन जो कथाटी उठेले एटा मु बार बार कहूँ जे जो हमरो କହିବି ତାକୁ ମାନେ ଅବିବେକିତା ସହିତ ଆମେ ଯୋଉ ଡିସିସନ ନେଇ ମାନେ ହେଲେ ସଡନଲି ସେମାନେ ଅନଟ୍ରାଏବଲ ହେଇଗଲେ ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଆଦିବାସୀ ବିଦ୍ୟାଳୟ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଗଲା ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଫ୍ରି ଫୁଡ ଫ୍ରି ଡ୍ରେସ୍ ଫ୍ରି ରିଡିଂ ରାଇଟିଂ ମେଟେରିଆଲ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଗଲା ସେମାନେ କଣ କଲେ ତାପରେ କୋନାମ ବୋଲି ଗୋଟେ ଏରିଆ ଅଛି ହାର୍ଡଲି 5 କିଲୋମିଟର୍ସ from our last village ତାଡି ବାଲସା ନେରେଡି ବାଲସା ତାର ପଟେ କୋନାମ ଯୋଉଟା କି ମୁଁ ଭାବୁଛି ଆମର ଯୋଉ ମ୍ୟାପ 1945 ମସିହାରେ ଇଂରେଜ ସରକାର କରିଥିଲେ ସେ ଅନୁସାରେ ଏଟା ଓଡିଶାରେ ରହିବା କଥା ସେଠି ସେମାନେ ଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ଆଦିବାସୀ ପ୍ରମାଣ ପତ୍ର ହାସଲ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ତେଲୁଗୁ ମିଡିୟମରେ ପାଠ ପଢୁଛନ୍ତି ଏଇ ଯାହା ଆମ କୁଟାରେ ଯାହା ଆମେ ଦେଖିଲୁ ସେ ଲୋକମାନେ ଆସ୍ତେ 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 ଅଣଓଡିଆ ହେଇଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଓଡିଶା ପ୍ରଦେଶ ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଯେତେବେଳେ ଓଡିଶା ପ୍ରଦେଶ ଗଠନ ହେବା ସମୟରେ କଥା ଉଠିଲା ଯେ ଓଡିଆ ସ୍ପିକିଂ ଟ୍ରାକ୍ଟ ସବୁତକ ଏଜେନ୍ସି ଏରିଆର ସେ ଓଡିଶାରେ ରହିବ ସେତେବେଳେ ଯୋଉ ଅଣ ଓଡିଆ ଅଫିସର ମାନେ ଥିଲେ ଇଂରେଜ ସରକାରଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ସେମାନେ ଲାଗି ପଡି ଆମର 1921 ମସିହାର ସେନ୍ସସ୍ ଫିଗରକୁ ସେମାନେ ମ୍ୟାନିପୁଲେଟ କଲେ 1931 ମସିହାର ସେନ୍ସସ୍ ଫିଗରକୁ ମ୍ୟାନିପୁଲେଟ କଲେ ଯାହା ଫଳରେ ଆମର ଓଡିଆ ଟ୍ରାକ୍ଟଟାକୁ ଅଣ ଓଡିଆ ଟ୍ରାକ୍ଟ ହିସାବରେ ସେମାନେ ଦେଖିବାକୁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରିଥିଲେ କିଛି ବର୍ଷ ପରେ ଏମିତି ହବ ଆମର ଏଇ ଅଞ୍ଚଳରେ ଆଉ ଆମ ଲୋକ ବୋଲି କେହି ନଥିବେ ଏଠି ଯାହା ହଉଛି କୁଟିଆ ପଞ୍ଚାୟତ କଥା ଆପଣମାନେ ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି ହାଇଲାଇଟ ହଉଛି ଏଇ କଥା ହଉଛି ଆମର ହିସାବ କରନ୍ତୁ ଆପଣ ମାନେ ଆମର ଯୋଉ ମୋଟୁ ପାଖରୁ ନେଇକିରି ଚନ୍ଦାହାଣ୍ଡି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଆମର କୋରାପୁଟ ଜିଲ୍ଲାର କଥା ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ ଓଡିଶାରେ ତ ଲାଗିଛି ସୁନ୍ଦରଗଡ଼ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଏ ଛତିଶଗଡ଼ ବର୍ଡରକୁ ଲାଗିଛି ଏ ଲୋକମାନେ ବି ସେଇ କଥା କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଛତିଶଗଡ଼ ମାନେ ଆଦିବାସୀ ଓଡିଶାରେ ନୁହନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ ଛାଡିକି ସେପଟେ ଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ଦୁଇରେ ରହିଲା ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ଅଲ ଇନକ୍ଲୁସିଭନେସ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଯୋଉ ଗୋଟେ ଗାଁରେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ରହିଛନ୍ତି ତାଙ୍କର ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି
everyone is requested to please mute their microphones.
ଆଜ୍ଞା ତେଣୁ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ଲୋକମାନେ ଆସ୍ତେ ଆସ୍ତେ ଆମ ଓଡିଆ ଲୋକମାନେ ଅଣ ଓଡିଆ ହେଇଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ଆପଣ ଯୋଉ କହୁଛନ୍ତି କଲଚର ହଉ କଲଚରାଲ ହେରିଟେଜ ହଉ ଏ ସବୁ କୁଆଡେ ଯାଉଛି ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉମାନେ ଡିସପ୍ଲେସ ହେଲେ ସେମାନେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ନୂଆ ଜାଗାକୁ ଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ତାଙ୍କର କଲଚର କଣ ହଉଛି ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ
ଲକି ଆରେ ପପାକୁ ଫୋନ କରିଦେ କରିଥିଲା ବାବାଙ୍କର ଏଇ ଚାଲିଛି ବୋଉ ଟିକେ ଯାଇଛି ଡାକ୍ତର ପାଖକୁ ଦେଖେଇବା ପାଇଁ ବେଶୀ ନ କହିକି କହିବୁ ଏମିତି
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
ପଚି ଆସିଲେ ବୋଧେ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଶୁଣିପାରୁଛି
ହଁ ତେଣୁ କୁଟିଆ ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ଟେଷ୍ଟ କେସ୍ ଆମ ମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଯେ ସେଠି ଯୋଉ ଲୋକମାନେ ରହିଛନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ ଚାହୁଁଛନ୍ତି ଓଡିଶାରେ ରହିବା ପାଇଁ ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କର କଲଚରକୁ ବଞ୍ଚେଇବା ପାଇଁ ରାଜ୍ୟ ସରକାର
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଯୋଉ ସୁବିଧା କରିବା କଥା ଫେସିଲିଟେଟର ହିସାବରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଯେ
ଅନମ୍यूट କରନ୍ତୁ ଗଦାଧର ବାବୁ ଅନମ୍यूट କରନ୍ତୁ गदाधर बाबू अनम्यूट करंतु
ଆପଣ ଟିକେ ଅନମ୍यूट ହଁ ତେଣୁ ନାଇଁ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ସେକେଣ୍ଡ ରାଉଣ୍ଡ ରେ ଶ୍ରୀ ପରିଡା the attempt is in the second round otherwise the discussions will go on and on so we have to look at specific issues so second round we are taking the Kotia issue and other such issues from you and we would request Orissa Forum to compile all these and take up at the different appropriate levels as specific issues. Now I'll come to Sri Achyut Das. Achyut bhai, you have been talking about allocation of budget for sustainable livelihoods. Why can't we do that? And who will do that? Whose responsibility is that? Can we say, for example, have 10% of our budget for sustainable livelihoods of the indigenous communities for their promotion? Unmute कर दियो तो unmute कर दियो
Who's calling, please? May I know who's calling, please? May I know who's calling, please?
अतिदा अनम्यूट कर दियंतु। मु आपन को अनम्यूट करि परिबिनी। हाँ।
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, I will now looking at the present context and the tribal areas having a lot of flux and changes and turbulence. What is the way forward? I think what we are trying basically in two ways. We have to go back to the basics. Basics is to develop every tribal village and hamlet as an eco-village. This eco-village, which we have developed as a concept as well as a practice, developing hundreds of villages as eco-villages and seeing its impact. First, this eco-village will have two components. One component is family farm. So every tribal household will have a family farm. Now under Forest Land Rights Act, many tribals have been given some land, which they own, part of shifting cultivation and other things. So those kind of lands can be developed, which will ensure them basics of food and nutrition security and also livelihood security. This is the crux. The second part of this eco-village is that the village has a tribal village as a village common property resources. That has to be developed by women. Women have to be own it and develop as they want, as per their own indigenous knowledge system, biodiversity conservation, seed conservation, local indigenous seeds. So this is a complete U-turn. For this, the resources are not, what you call, in short supply.
Yes.
Because if you look at the basic constitutional rights of the tribal sub-plan says that 10% of the plan budget is meant for the scheduled areas, for the tribes. 10% of, in Odisha, tribal population is 22%. So 22% of the budget will be earmarked for the tribal development.
Absolutely.
So we know what is the shortage of money. It's the lack of mind, lack of ideas. They don't want to learn from best practices, where the tribals have succeeded, how the tribal women have conserved the seeds, where the forest has been protected by the community. Things are all going haywire actually. Have been going wrong somewhere, and someone is not willing to look at what is happening on the ground, not able to hear what is the voice that is being raised. So I think we have to have a complete shift of paradigm. And here the governance system has to be completely enforced. For example, PESA says that Gram Sabha is the final authority to decide the development of the village or the panchayat. Unfortunately, Odisha, having a 22% population, has been diluting this PESA very badly. I can say it very loud and clear, saying that PESA rules have not yet been formulated in Odisha, unlike other states, number one. Number two, that Gram Sabha's decision is not final. They have diluted some third-rate bureaucrat, which is anti-tribal, change these policies. No, Gram Sabha is not the final authority. It has to be decided by what you call the appropriate authority. So in Odisha, the panchayat is controlled by a BLW, the block is controlled by the BDO, the Jila Parishad is controlled by a collector. This is a complete violation of PESA Act. This is the wrong message that has been given to the tribals. So our politics, look at our politicians. You know, I am not hesitant to say this thing. Tribal Advisory Council has the mandate to decide the tribal policy for MLAs, ministers, MPs, Chief Minister is the chairperson. Odisha has a very progressive legislation in support of the tribals called OSAT, Odisha State Act for transfer of immovable properties.
Yeah.
OSAT. There is a restriction that tribal land cannot be changed. Now this tribal advisory council is taking a decision that no, tribals will be allowed to sell their land. This is a great contradiction. Look at the role of governor. The constitution says the governor has a special power and responsibility for the tribal population in the scheduled areas. Very clearly written. And the governor has to go to every tribal district every year and give a report to president and like that, submit a report. Please take a survey. How the governor is going to the districts? What is the review? What is if there is a distress condition? There is what you call discontent. There is disaffection. Why the governor is keeping silent? When there are certain laws and rules and policies are anti-tribal, why the power that be is not questioning? So my only fear is that it's a big market is coming through these extractive industries, through these commercial cropping, commercial plantations, many kind of industrializations. So to resist this kind of onslaught, the tribals have to understand their own, entitlements, their constitutional rights, their, what you call, as I rightly said, they have to assert, they have to form their organizations. NGOs are there. Agram is there for last 40 years. There could be many. Thakar Bapa Assam, maybe in Gandhian days, there are Sarvodayis, missionaries all over. But ultimately, the tribals have to form their own organizations.
Thank you.
Not these SSG type organizations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for specifically for reminding all of us about our duty. It is our responsibility. Now we can't blame anyone. The civil society has to wake up and do this. Thank you so much. And now we'll go to Sri Praful Samantray. We are worried. I think you should unmute. Dada, you should unmute. Apan mute achi. Take unmute.
Yes.
So we know that our indigenous families, like people, youth particularly, are exploited. We remember them when we remember big business or mines and minerals and extraction. We don't do anything for them. But can we say that we want development? We are not anti-development. We are pro-development. But the indigenous communities want quid pro quo, good value for what they are giving away.
ଦୁଇ ତିନୋଟି କଥା ମୁଁ କହିବା ପାଇଁ ଚାହୁଁଛି। ବେସିକାଲି ଆମେ କେବଳ ଓଡ଼ିଶା ବା ଛତିଶଗଡ଼ ବି ଯିଏ ଯୋଉ ରାଜ୍ୟ କଥା ଭାବିବା, ତାହେଲେ କେବଳ ଆମେ ଏଇଠି କହିବା ଯେ ଆମ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ୍ସ ଆମ ଆଦିବାସୀ ମାନଙ୍କର ଆମେ ଏଇ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ କରିବା, ଇଭେନ୍ ଚାहे ଓଡ଼ିଶା ସରକାର ଚାହିଁଲେ ବି କରିପାରିବ ନାହିଁ। କିନ୍ତୁ ଓଡ଼ିଶା ସରକାର ତ ବି ଯେତିକି ଚାହିଁବା କଥା ଚାହୁଁନାହାନ୍ତି। ସେଇଟା ମୁଁ କହିବା କଥା, ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ର, we are sovereign states, India is sovereign state। ମୋର କହିବା କଥା ଯେ ଗୋଟେ ସମ୍ବିଧାନ ପାଇଛୁ, ସମ୍ବିଧାନ ଅନୁସାରେ ସବୁ କଥା ହଉଛି, ଯଦି କହୁଛୁ ଆମେ ନିର୍ବାଚନ ହଉଛି, ପାର୍ଲାମେଣ୍ଟ ଚାଲିଛି, ସବୁ କିଛି ହଉଛି, କିନ୍ତୁ ସମ୍ବିଧାନରେ ଯେତିକି ଦିଆଯାଇଛି ଯେ 5th schedule, ପଞ୍ଚମ ଅନୁଚ୍ଛେଦରେ ଯୋଉ କ୍ଷମତା ଦିଆଯାଇଛି ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ କମ୍ୟୁନିଟିକୁ, ଦ୍ୱିତୀୟ ଆସିଲା ପେଶା କଲୁ, ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କ କଥା ଶୁଣିଲୁନି ବୋଲି ଗୋଟେ ପେଶା ଏଟା ହେଲା ଇଏ ଭୁରିଆ କମିଟି ପରେ ପ୍ରଥମ ଥର ପାଇଁ ସାମ୍ବିଧାନିକ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ପ୍ରୋଭିଜନ ଅଛି ବୋଲି ଲୋକେ ଜାଣିଲେ, ଏବଂ ବହୁ ସଂଘର୍ଷ ପରେ ଆମେ ଫରେଷ୍ଟ ରାଇଟ୍ ଆକ୍ଟ ଆଣିଲୁ, ଅଧିକାର ଦେଲୁ। ये तीनोटी को जब मिसेकरी जो कथा सुप्रीम कोर्ट आम जो जाइए सुप्रीम कोर्ट आम नियमगिरी सुरक्षा एवं सुप्रीम कोर्ट भी एक्सेप्ट कला 2013 जे ग्राम सभा को पचारिकी तमें रिसोर्स कथा बुझ ट्रांसफर कर मोर कह कथा जे जो माने चिंता कर अंतत यही कथा कहतु जे जो माने योजना करेंगे जो आम जो विकास कथा कहूँ से विकास ये तीनोटी कथा को लेकिन फ्रेमवर्क हवा दरकार ताहले अधिकांश कन्फ्रंटेशन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हम ना से अनुसार हमको जो विकास धारा विकास प्रक्रिया विकास मॉडल जाको आम कहूँ आम निश्चित भाव में अलग करूँ आसबू द्वितीय कथा हूँ प्रथम हूँ शिक्षा जो कथाटा कहले जे ओडिशा लोक आंध्र चली जाउछन्ती ओडिशा की आउ के चली जाउछि ट्राइबल्स पई ओडिया जे कहबो ओडिया भाषा तांकर नुह आमे चाहिमा समान ओडिया होंतु किमिति हेबे हमर जदि ओडिया स्क्रिप्ट दिया जिवो तांकर डायलॉग आना जिवो तांकर भाषा रे गोटे चतुर्थ पंचम क्लास पिला पर्यंत जदि ता भाषा रे पढिबो ता भाषा ओडिया अक्षर दियो ए पर्यंत हला नै बा ओडिशा रे भारत वर्ष रे भी जगह बहुत जगह हेनी जदि से कथा दि जाए ताहले शिक्षा जो प्राथमिक शिक्षा प्रति जो लोकंकर आदि आम कहूँ आम किस तैयारी कर 22,000 पिला नहीं करूँ पाठ पढ़ी जदि गोटे पिंजरा भितर जेल भीतर रखा रखू बापा माँ ठू कल्चर ठू संस्कृति ठू समस्त प्रकार लांगुएज रू सब कथा अलग कर मेन स्ट्रीम करदेबू ताले सी कौन हम जो मैंने मेट्रिक कॉलेज रू आसला बेलू से घर कथा समाज कथा भूली जाइए तेणु ये एनिहिलेशन ऑफ कल्चर एनिहिलेशन ऑफ ट्राइबल आइडेंटिटी आमे कहीं कम्युनिटी शिक्षा करूनी सरकार कहीं करेंगे राष्ट्र दायित्व ये अमेरिका जर्मनी फ्रांस रे जदि एत पुंजीवादी राष्ट्र होकर शिक्षा राष्ट्र दायित्व हाईस्कूल पर्यंत भारत वर्ष गोटे गरीब देश कहीं ना हम भाषा को लेकर रिसोर्सेस को लेकर आइडेंटिटी को लेकर तेणु प्रथम हूँ कम्युनिटी एजुकेशन कर कम्युनिटी अंडर तुम शिक्षा व्यवस्था कर हाईस्कूल पर्यंत ताहले आमे अचीव कर 10 वर्ष भितर आमे मैट्रिक पास कर अंत 50% पिला ड्रप आउट हेबेनी जो कथा समिया कहला झियो पिला कौन समस्त ड्रप आउट होचनी ट्राइबल्स रे तो ये द्वितीय कथा तृतीय कथा हूँ लाइवलीहुड सिस्टम जो ट्रेडिशनल रिसोर्स सहित लाइवलीहुड सिस्टम जड़ित और से लाइवलीहुड सहित संस्कृति परिचय अस्मिता संपर्क तेणु लाइवलीहुड सिस्टम टाको तुम स्ट्रेंथन कर ध्वंस करनी डेवलपमेंट ना बरं जो डेवलपमेंट कर यू आस्क देम से भागीदारी कर तृतीय कथा हूँ साधारण गोटे खाली एग्जाम देकर सारी ये डिस्कसन को जानापी समस्त डेवलपमेंट आम आम जो मैंने डेवलपमेंट समर्थक जो मैंने कहते नहीं आम बेसिस्ट प्लान आम पैसा दरकार जदि आम आम राष्ट्र जो कहली राष्ट्र संविधान तुम्हें संविधान को मान तुम रिसोर्सेस बिलोंग्स टू ट्राइबल कम्युनिटी तो मन कर आज आज तुम लुहा बिक लुहा पत्थर सरीगला ओडिशा रे लुहा पत्थर बर्तमान आप जानतु जे 2010 रे सेंटर फॉर साइंस एंड एनवायरनमेंट जो रिपोर्ट तैयारी कला रिसर्च पेपर रिपोर्ट तैयारी कला रिच स्टेट पुअर पीपल से स्पष्ट भाव लिखाई सारा भारत वर्ष रे जे जोठी मिनरल रिसोर्सेस एक्सप्लोर होईची खनि खनन होईची ओडिशा 7टी जिला केन्दुझर आरंभ कर सुंदरगढ़ पर्यंत और भारत वर्ष रे 40टा सबुठू द poorest district 40 districts रू 32 poorest districts belong to mining area तार तो जो माइनिंग होती दारिद्र्य बढ़ी आज भी केन्दुझर आज भी छोरापुट कहीं दारिद्र्य होती क्वेश्चन आंसर किए दब तेणु आम कह कथा मन कर तुम ठीक अच्छे बाहर सरकार राष्ट्र कहीं तुम प्राइवेटाइजेशन कर तुम सरकार पाखे रख तुम प्राइवेट पार्टी की दियो केत दब तुम रॉयल्टी कहीं कर कहीं मार्केट रेट दबनी जे जदि लुहा टन टा 4,000 टंका मार्केट रे ये एकदा 8,000 होता 10 वर्ष तले जदि 4,000 टंका से 400 टंका दूसरी आम कह कथा स्टेट ताको बिकू क्या स्टेट ताको बिकिले 4,000 टंका 2,000 3,000 खर्च 3,000 टंका आसो ताहले आम कम माइनिंग कम बक्साइट कम माइनर रो आम जदि खनन करूँ आम अधिका पैसा पाइबू से पैसा समस्त खर्च हम रिसोर्सेस रही ट्राइबल डिस्प्लेसमेंट करा पड़ोनी द्वितीय कथा जो फंड आसूचे भी आमर डिस्ट्रिक्ट मिनरल फंड आपन कैंपा फंड ये पैसा क्या खर्च हो सुंदरगढ़ जिले में खर्च है टाउन एरिया रे पानी देवाई 300 कोटी टंका 400 कोटी टंका मेडिकल कॉलेज केउंझर है किंतु ट्राइबल मान से फंड रू शिक्षा है स्वास्थ्य है पंचायत स्तर में ତେଣୁ ହୁ ଇଜ୍ ରେସ୍ପନ୍ସିବଲ୍ ତମେ କେମିତି ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ନବ ଯୋଉ ଟଙ୍କା ଆସୁଛି ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ ହଉଛି ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ବି ଯଦି ପ୍ରସ୍ତୁତ ନୁହନ୍ତି କାହିଁକି ନା ଯୋଉମାନେ ଦାୟିତ୍ୱରେ ଅଛନ୍ତି ବ୍ୟୁରୋକ୍ରାଟ୍ସ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରି ପଲିଟିସିଆନ ଏବଂ ସବୁ ରାଜନୈତିକ ଦଳ ସେମାନେ ଚାହୁଁଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ସେମାନେ ତା ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ୍ସ କିଛି ନାହିଁ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ୍ସ ନାଁରେ ଆମେ ସବୁ କରିବୁ ଆଉ ମୁଁ ଗୋଟେ କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚିନ୍ ଏନାଦର ଆସିଛି ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣରଙ୍କୁ ଦାୟିତ୍ୱ ଦିଆଯାଇଛି କନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନାଲ ହେଡ୍ ହଉଛନ୍ତି ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣର ଇଭେନ୍ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରପତି ନୁହନ୍ତି ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ ଏରିଆ ପାଇଁ ଆଜି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଭାରତବର୍ଷରେ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣର ଇଣ୍ଟରଭେନ୍ କରୁନାହାନ୍ତି ଯେତେବେଳେ କ୍ରାଇମ୍ କ୍ରାଇସିସ୍ ହଉଛି ଫାୟାରିଂ ହଉଛି ଡିସ୍ପ୍ୟୁଟ୍ ଭିତରେ ଲୋକ ଲଢୁଛନ୍ତି ଅସନ୍ତୁଷ୍ଟ ହଉଛନ୍ତି ଯେ କନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନାଲ ହେଡ୍ ଇଜ୍ ନଟ୍ ରିଚିଂ ଇଜ୍ ନଟ୍ ଇଣ୍ଟରଫେରିଂ ସୋ ତାହେଲେ ତାର ସମ୍ବିଧାନକୁ ତମେ ଯଦି ବଳିଦବ ସମ୍ବିଧାନ ଯୋଉ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥାଟି ଅଛି ତାକୁ ଯଦି ପଦାଘାତ କରିବ ତାହେଲେ ତମେ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ କି ନ୍ୟାୟ ଦେଇପାରିବ ଆଜି 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 ମୁଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ଶେଷରେ କହିବାକୁ ଚାହେଁ ଯେ ମୁଁ ଗୋଟେ ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଦଉଛି ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ କଥା କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଯୋଉଠି ଅଚ୍ୟୁତ ବାବୁ ବେଶୀ କାମ କରିଛନ୍ତି କାଶୀପୁର ଅଞ୍ଚଳରେ ଅଚ୍ୟୁତ ବାବୁ ସେ କଥା ବି ଆରମ୍ଭ ଉଠେଇଥିଲେ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗଲୁ କାଶୀପୁରରେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ସହଯୋଗ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ବକ୍ସାଇଟ୍ ବିରୁଦ୍ଧରେ ଖନି ବିରୁଦ୍ଧରେ ଆଜି ସେ କଥା ହେଲା କଣ ହେଲା ନା ଆପଣ ଦେଖିବେ ରାଜୀବ ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ପ୍ରାଇମ ମିନିଷ୍ଟର ସମୟରେ 60 କୋଟି ଟଙ୍କା ଆସିଲା ଆଇଫେଡ୍ ଇଣ୍ଟରନ୍ୟାସନାଲ ଫଣ୍ଡ ଫର ଏଗ୍ରିକଲଚର ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ କାଶୀପୁରକୁ ଗଲା আচ্ছা 60 কোটি টাকা যে খরচ হলা সেটা করপশন কি আছে অলগা কথা কিন্তু যোথিপাই খরচ হলা রাস্তা পাই খরচ হলা জলসেচন পাই খরচ হলা আইবি হেলা আচ্ছা বুঝলা আচ্ছা বর্তমান আপন আজি দেখিবে সে যে 60 কোটি টাকা 80 দশকରୁ 90 দশকରେ যে খরচ হলা তার ফল বি কিয়ে নেলা সে ট্রাইবাল ডিসপ্লেসমেন্ট দেলে তাଙ୍କ জমি চালি গলা উৎকଳ আলমিনাଙ୍କୁ ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ପାଣି ଯୋଉ ଜଳସେଚନ ପାଇଁ ହେଇଥିଲା ସେଟା ବି ସେ ନେଇଗଲା ସବୁ ନେଇଗଲା ସୋ ଏଣ୍ଟାୟାରଲି ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟାଲ ପ୍ରୋଜେକ୍ଟ meant for non-tribals tribal ନାଁରେ ଗଲା ସୋ ସିମିଲାରଲି ଆମେ ଯଦି ନିୟମକୁ ଦେଖିବା ଆମେ ଯଦି ଆମେ ଏଜୁକେସନ ଦେଖିବା ଶିକ୍ଷା ଦେଖିବା କାହିଁକି ଆମେ କିସ୍ କାହିଁକି 22,000 ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ କାହିଁକି ଗୋଟେ ଜାଗାରେ ପକେଇବା ପିଞ୍ଜରା ଭିତରେ ରହିକିରି କାହିଁକି ପ୍ରାଇଭେଟେସନ ହବ କାହିଁକି ସବୁଠି ଆମେ କମ୍ୟୁନିଟି ସ୍କୁଲ ତିଆରି କରିପାରୁନୁ ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ ସବୁ ଶିକ୍ଷା ଦେବା ପାଇଁ ସବୁଠି ଆଉ ସେ ପଇସା ବି କିଣୁଛି ଯୋଉ ବେଦାନ୍ତ ବିରୁଦ୍ଧରେ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ ଯୋଉ ଡଙ୍ଗରିଆ କନ୍ଧ ଯୁଦ୍ଧ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଗୁଳି ଖାଉଛନ୍ତି ଜେଲ ଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ଆଉ ସେମାନଙ୍କ ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ ନେଇକିରି ପୁଣି ତା ପଇସାରେ ତାଙ୍କ ଏଗ୍ରିମେଣ୍ଟ ହେଇଥିବ ବେଦାନ୍ତ ପଇସାରେ କିସ୍ ପାଠ ପଢାଇବ ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ ଟଲରେଟ୍ କରିପାରିବ ଗୋଟେ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ କମ୍ୟୁନିଟିର ଚିନ୍ତା କରିବ ଯେ ମୋ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ର କଣ ମୋ ଭବିଷ୍ୟତ କଣ ମୋର କହିବା କଥା ଯେ ଜଳ ଦୁଷୁଛି ମୁଁ ଆଜି ଶେଷ କଥା କହିବା ପାଇଁ ଚାହେଁ ଯେ ସାରା ପୃଥିବୀରେ ଖାଲି ଓଡ଼ିଶା ନାହିଁ ଭାରତବର୍ଷ ନାହିଁ ଆଜି ଯୋଉ ଗ୍ଲୋବାଲ କ୍ୟାପିଟାଲ ये सबुठ बड़ विपद ट्राइबल्स में आम समस्त କିନ୍ତୁ ସ୍ପେଶାଲି ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ୍ସ ପାଇଁ ଆଜି ଲାଟିନ ଆମେରିକା କୁହନ୍ତୁ ଆଫ୍ରିକା କୁହନ୍ତୁ ମୁଁ ନିଜେ ଯାଇଛି ସେମାନଙ୍କର ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ସେଇଠି ବହୁତ ବଡ଼ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରଗଲ ହଉଛି even ଆମେରିକା ଆଜି ବି ରେଡ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ୍ସ ମାନେ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରଗଲ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଏବେ ରିସେଣ୍ଟଲି ଜଜମେଣ୍ଟ ଆସିଛି ସୁପ୍ରିମକୋର୍ଟର ତାଙ୍କ ଗ୍ରାମସ୍ ତାଙ୍କର କମ୍ୟୁନିଟିକୁ ଆକ୍ସେପ୍ଟ କରିଛି ଏବେ 4 ଦିନ ତଳେ କାନାଡାରେ ଗୋଟେ ସୁପ୍ରିମକୋର୍ଟ ଦେଲା ଯେ ଯୋଉ କମ୍ପାନୀ ମାନେ ତାଙ୍କର ଇଣ୍ଟରନ୍ୟାସନାଲ ଟ୍ରେଡିସନାଲ ଡିକ୍ଲାରେସନ ସବୁ ଅଛି ଯେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଜେନସ୍ ପାଇଁ ଏଇ ଆଶା କରିବା କଥା ତମେ ଯଦି ଭାଓଲେଟ ହଉଛି ତାହେଲେ ସେଇମାନେ ଦାୟୀ ତମେ କରିପାରିବ ନାହିଁ 3 ଦିନ 4 ଦିନ ତଳେ କାନାଡାର ସେଣ୍ଟ୍ରାଲ ଏବଂ କାନାଡାରେ ବି ରୟାଲ କମିଶନ 1995 ରେ ଏତେ ଡେଭଲପ୍ଡ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରି ତାର ବି ଫାଷ୍ଟ ନେସନ କୁ ତାଙ୍କ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟର ପ୍ରୋସେସରେ ଆଣିପାରିଲେ ନାହିଁ ବୋଲି ରୟାଲ କମିଶନ ବସିଲା ଏବଂ ସେ ରିପୋର୍ଟ ଦେଲା ଯେ ନୋ ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ତାଙ୍କ ଅନୁସାରେ ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଯଦି ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ କରାଯାଏ that cannot be acceptable ସେମାନେ acceptable ହେଇପାରିବ ନାହିଁ ନିୟମଗିରିକୁ 30 ଫୁଟର ରାସ୍ତା କଣ ଦରକାର ସେଠି ତ ମାଇନିଂ ବନ୍ଦ ହେଇଛି ତମେ 10 ଫୁଟିଆ 5 ଫୁଟିଆ ରାସ୍ତା କରୁନ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ କହୁଛନ୍ତି 10 ଫୁଟିଆ କର ଆମ ପାଇଁ ସାଇକେଲ ଆସିବ ମାଷ୍ଟର ଆସିବେ ଆମ ପାଇଁ ଭିଡିଓ ଯିବେ ଆମ ପାଇଁ ଦେଖିବା ପାଇଁ ସେଇଠି କାହିଁକି ବୁଲଡୋଜର ନେବା ପାଇଁ ତମେ ବଡ ନେବା ପାଇଁ 30 ଫୁଟିଆ 40 ଫୁଟିଆ ପଇସା ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିକି ତାଙ୍କୁ ଜବରଦସ୍ତ କରୁଛ ସେମାନେ ବିରୋଧ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ତାପରେ ତମେ ମାଓବାଦୀ ନାଁରେ ରଖୁଛ ଏବଂ ଜେଲରେ ଆମ ଭଳିଆ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ଆଜି ଦେଶରେ ଭାରତ ସରକାର ଯୋଉଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଚାଲିଛି ଏଇଥିରେ ତମେ ଆଣ୍ଟି ନ୍ୟାସନାଲ ନହେଲେ ଆଣ୍ଟି ନ୍ୟାସନାଲ କିମ୍ବା ତମେ ମାଓବାଦୀ ये 3टा କଥା କହିକିରି ତମେ ଯେତିକି ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ୍ସ ମାନଙ୍କ ତାଙ୍କ କମ୍ୟୁନିଟି ପାଇଁ ଯୋଉମାନେ ଲଢୁଛନ୍ତି ତାଙ୍କ ସାଥୀ ଦଉଛନ୍ତି ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ପୁରା ତାଙ୍କ ରାଇଟ୍ ନେବା ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ ଚାଲିଛି ଭାରତ ବର୍ଷରେ ତେଣୁ ମୋର ଆଇ ଆପିଲ୍ ଟୁ ଦ ପିପୁଲ ମୁଁ କହିବା କଥା ଯେ ଆପଣମାନେ ଚିନ୍ତା କରନ୍ତୁ ଯେ ଆମେ ଯଦି ଆମକୁ ନିଜକୁ ରକ୍ଷା କରିବା ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ କଥା ଛାଡ ନନ୍ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ ଯଦି ନଦୀ ଆସିଛି ସେଇଠୁ ଆସିଛି ନଦୀ ଶୁଖିଯିବ ଆମର ବି ଚାଲିଯିବ 2ଟା ନଦୀ ଦେଇଛି ନିୟମଗିରି ନିୟମଗିରି 2ଟା ନଦୀ ଦେଇଛି ଯେ ନିୟମଗିରି ଧ୍ୱଂସ ହେଇଯିବ ସେ ନଦୀ ଧ୍ୱଂସ ହେଇଯିବେ ତେଣୁ ମାଇ ପଏଣ୍ଟ ଇଜ जे तांकर भविष्यत पई हमको तांको अनुसार जदि
point-
शिक्षा स्वास्थ्य एवं
आगे।
लाइवलीहुड ए तीनटा जदि करिबा एवं संविधान को लेकर करिबा मु भाबुची जे वी कैन डू जस्टिस
आगे धन्यवाद thank you Mr. Samtai. This has been a long discussion and we have actually exceeded the time limit, but to sum up in one sentence, I think what we need to understand is we are all tribals. This is our duty to our own resources. Should have our communities should have proper value for what they are dispensing with. Thank you so much for this evening, and we can, if time permits, have a few questions.
I'll request, there are 2-3 questions from people who come from far distances. I'll first request Mr. Ramesh Biswal from Lagos.
Jai Jagannath aଜ୍ଞା.
Please make it short and brief.
Yeah. Jai Jagannath aଜ୍ଞା. ମୋ ନାଁ ରମେଶ ବିଶ୍ୱାଳ. ମୋର ଅପରଚୁନିଟି ଥିଲା ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ ଏରିଆରେ ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ 1990 ରୁ 1997 ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଥିଲା ୱେଷ୍ଟର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଓଡ଼ିଶା, ଇଷ୍ଟର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଓଡ଼ିଶା, ୱେଷ୍ଟର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଓଡ଼ିଶା, ନର୍ଦର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଓଡ଼ିଶା ଏବଂ 2003 ରୁ 2010 ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ମଧ୍ୟ ନାଇଜର ଡେଲ୍ଟା ଇନ୍ ଲାଗୋସ୍ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ ଏରିଆରେ. Both the areas are rich in all forest and also minerals and oil resources in Nigeria side. They have been converted, they have been deprived by somehow or other. ମୁଁ ନିଜେ ଇକୋନୋମିକ ଆକ୍ଟିଭିଟି ରେ ଥିଲି, ଅଏଲ ସିଡ୍ସ ପ୍ରୋକ୍ୟୁରମେଣ୍ଟ ରେ ଥିଲି ଓଡ଼ିଶା.
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆପଣ କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ ଟା ଆଜ୍ଞା
ମୁଁ କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ କହୁଛି ଆଜ୍ଞା, କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ ଟା କହୁଛି, କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ ଇଟ ୱିଲ କମ ଆଉଟ ଅଫ ଦିସ୍ ଷ୍ଟେଟମେଣ୍ଟସ ଟା. ସୋ ସେଇଟା ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ବ୍ଲେମ କରୁଛେ ଯେ ଆମର ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ କଲାନି, ବ୍ୟୁରୋକ୍ରାଟ କଲେନି, ପଲିଟିସିଆନ କଲେନି, ଏମାନେ କଲେନି. So at the end of the day, ame achi madhya prabasi odia mane ame amar organization ame eta. So if we can directly touch the lives of at least 50 to 60 जो अछंती जो ठिकारा हमर आदिवासी लोक ताकू डायरेक्टली ame touch करि परिबा. Empowerment of the young and empowerment of the direct empowerment, instead of having this type of seminar करि करि ame anku जदि आनी परिबा डायरेक्ट interface with the direct beneficiary. काहे के हमर जो माने सिटी अछंती मु जानि छि कोरापुट जाई छि ऑयल सीड प्रोक्योरमेंट टाइप रे जो माने अछंती लिटिल बेटर ऑफ any advocate कोंतु any shopkeeper कोंतु, they are better off because they are the direct exploiters. Due respect to everybody, they exploit the people of the tribals.
Yes,
so it's supposed to be a direct contact. हमर ए जो ओडिया प्रवासी ओडिया माने हम समस्त अच्छे आमे जे सेमिनार टा करूचे वर्तमान मु देखली 100 जन कि ओटा कोन मोबाइल देले ए कोरोना भितरे आपण माने जे चेष्टा करी जदी आमे समस्त यदि किछि 100 टा मोबाइल देई कि सेमान सहित यदि आमे एटा कोरोना विषय आमे ताका सहित ऑनलाइन रे कथा वार्ता करबा, दे कैन टच अप. आमे ओडिया लैंग्वेज तांको कथा वार्ता करी तांको के 10 जन को तांको टीच करेबा कि आपण माने आसंतु आपण को संघर्ष आपण लडंतु. आज्ञा जण कहथिले प्रफुल्ल बाबू जे सेमाने तांको संघर्ष लडिया दरकार. केमित लडिबे? आमे जो एलाइट माने अच्छे आमे निजुकु आमर गोटे यंग कम्युनिटी रहा दरकार 30 रु 40 वर्ष नहले हबनी आज्ञा. We are the old people, including me and you. Let's everybody should go back. Let's give to the young people.
Yeah, good suggestion.
Taking action into own hands. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah,
Good
yes,
suggestion.
Noted.
Now, I'll request Gopal Krishna Mishra.
Aଜ୍ଞା.
So economic.
Thank you, Mr. Lou.
And
Thank you.
Professor Jojo will may like to answer this question. Gopal Babu, is he there? You can all unmute. Those who want to ask questions can unmute themselves or raise their hands. Gopal Babu Achanti. Okay.
I am there. I am there.
Yes. Like to ask.
I have sent my question.
Yeah,
I have
just.
written my question.
Yeah, I know. Can you?
I can. My question is actually I just wanted to know. There are so many schools operating in the tribal area, and since independence, I just want to know how has been the growth pattern of the tribal population vis-a-vis other population in Odisha, vis-a-vis other communities, as well as Odisha vis-a-vis other states. That is number one. Question number two is that there are these microfinance institutions now prevalent in these tribal areas where they are freeing the tribal population from the landlord. Are they able to really contribute something for their growth?
So Jojo, there are two questions. One is that has there been any differential growth pattern between tribals and non-tribals, or is the growth of the tribal areas the same?
Yeah, the
as the
second
non-tribal
question, sir.
areas?
Second question.
And second is
Second
tribal
is
job
the quota of government service. Does it uplift the status of tribals?
Okay, okay.
Quota system.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And third is the microfinance institutions and their relevance.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
Professor Jojo.
Yeah, yes, please. First question. Yeah, first, I would like to accept that there has been change, positive change, ever since independent India. The kind of programs, development programs, have been initiated by the government. I like to accept that. However, I would say that yes, the trend has shown. Trend has been showing that compared to other population or the overall average of the state or non-tribal population, yes, there is variation in the growth, in the change. Be it is health, education, economic empowerment, there has been change, except gender issue, or I think rest of the things there is a huge difference. That is one. Second,
Reservations in services.
Reservation.
I
Sir,
want
first thing that we should look at whether reservations have been reservation post, whether it is in government job, either whichever class. If you look at whether they have been filled. If you look at the trend shows that in the class 4, class 3 category, most likely there might be full or even more than the quota percentage of the number of jobs. But when it comes to officers, whether the B category or A category or class 1 or class 2 categories, if you see that you may not find the proportionate percentage which was supposed to be filled up because of the reservation. In political systems, yes, because of reservation, yes, because non-tribal cannot contest. There are in the panchayat or in the legislative assembly or the parliament. So that is there. Other than that, I think one has to see whether the post have been filled in. It will make change. Wherever it is there, it is making change slowly. Wherever they are, it is making change. And I hope that if the posts are filled up, at least at the individual level, at the family level, at the beginning, I think there will be change, positive change. Microcredit, initially, I think there are small examples where it has helped. We have small experiments in the state as well as outside the state, which has helped, but it needs bit of awareness, need of engagement with the tribal community, because this kind of microcredit, which is completely commercial and monetized system, it is a bit of alien systems. So it needs bit of engagement with them to understand this process, instead of straight away getting into the save and borrow and invest. I think they are new to this system, so it needs some time. And if they are able to educated and they are made aware of the system and train, capacity built, I think gradually they'll be able to participate in this. Otherwise, I think they will feel alien to this microcredit system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lochan Sharma, she's there. There's a question asked by Mr. N.K. Sahu. Mr. N.K. Sahu, you can ask the question. Basically, I think he's asked what is the relationship between Devdasi system and tribals? Has it affected them much?
Sir, okay, so actually I was looking into lots of literature to which exactly the tribal group are the representatives of the Devdasi tradition. And I've asked few of the people, but most of them are not sure about which, is it specific to one tribal group or is it the representatives of different tribal groups. So far, literature says that tribal women across different tribal groups were practicing these Devdasi tradition. And so, what was the second question? Like the follow-up question?
No, that was the only question. Mr. Sahu, if he's there, we can ask any follow-up. But do you think that it is only germane to tribal communities, or it is?
No.
I
It
thought it
was.
was other communities also have the same system prevails in other communities also, even in non-tribals.
Yes, sir. So, like, it. I mean, it's not specific to just the tribal communities. People from different communities, or even the lower caste from the other religions, were also coming up like as a devdasis, and they were worshipping in the temple. So, exact literature has to be researched upon, but it's not specific to just one community, I would say.
Sorry for the interruption, sir. Arvind Padi here. Can I come in, sir?
Yes, yes, sir.
Who's this?
Sir, this is Arvind Padi. Can I come?
Arvind Padi.
Yeah, Arvind, come.
Sir, I'm very sorry that I'm coming on this Devadasi fact. I think the facts need to be checked.
Mr. Padi was the administrator in the Jagannath Temple, and also director of tourism. So he should be knowing. Yeah.
Sir, I do not know much, but I would request the panelists or the researchers to please cross-check with the facts before telling on such sensitive topics. In fact, I have my own doubts whether it is a tribal or non-tribal moving into the Devadasi or Mahari system. Sir, my very sincere request that these are all very sensitive stuff. We need to research and then only speak. I have been the chief administrator for a good amount of time. I do not have the authority to speak on this.
Yes, it is to be investigated also, because in entirely India also there is a system which is a very, very much slavery system. So we can't say it is only to Jojo can say speaker, but only the tribal no. It is a mixed and it is a I think it is a slavery system. It is to be condemned. It is to be opposed. Whoever may.
No one is supporting the system, but basic question is whether it is confined to only tribals or non-tribals also. So
I think we need to have a detailed research on this before going.
Yes.
Okay, is Justice Patnaik there or has he left?
Sir, I had just put a question there.
Sure.
Sir, my question is to both the civil society friends, Achyut Babu and Prafulla Babu, more question rahibo. Often, I have also been fortunate to work in the tribal districts for a longer part of my early career. Pakhabai 6-7 varsha mu Koraput area re kama karchi, collector rahichi. Oftentimes we are told that Modo ebang Mahajan, country liquor and money lending are the two major obstacles for tribal development. What are their views on this particular?
Yes. ମୁଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ କହିଦେବେ exactly ମୁଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ନଉଛି example ନାରାୟଣପାଟଣା ଆପଣ ଦେଖନ୍ତୁ ଯେ ନାରାୟଣପାଟଣା ବନ୍ଧୁଗାଁ ଇଏ ଗଦାଧର ପରିଡ଼ା ବାବୁ ବି ତାର ୱିଟନେସ୍ ବି ଯେତେବେଳେ 2000 ପରେ ସେଠି ନାଚିକାଲିଙ୍ଗା ଜଣେ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ ଲିଡର ପରି ତୃତୀୟ କ୍ଲାସ ପାଠ ପଢୁଥିଲେ କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ନ୍ୟାୟ ସରପଞ୍ଚ ଥିଲେ ସେ ଚାହିଁଲେ ମଦକୁ ବେନ୍ କରିବା ପାଇଁ କିନ୍ତୁ ହେଇପାରିଲା ନାହିଁ ସେ ନିଜେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ କଲେ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ କମ୍ୟୁନିଟିକୁ ନେଇକରି ଯେ ମଦ ହଟାଅ କାହିଁକିନା ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ୍ସ ମାନଙ୍କର ଟ୍ରାଡିସନାଲ ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ପାଇବା ଡିଫରେଣ୍ଟ କିନ୍ତୁ ଯୋଉ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯୋଉ କମର୍ସିଆଲ ମଦ ବାହାରୁ ଯାଇଛନ୍ତି ବିକିଛନ୍ତି ତିଆରି କରିଛନ୍ତି ବାହାରୁ ବିକ୍ରି ଯୋଉ ଦିଟା ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲଏଟେସନ ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି ମଦ ଦେଇକିରି ଜମି ନେଇଛନ୍ତି ମଦ ଟିକେ ଖୁଆଇ ଟଙ୍କାକାର ମଦ ଦେଇକି 100 ଟଙ୍କାର ଜମି ନେଇଛନ୍ତି ଗାଈ ନେଇଛନ୍ତି ତାଙ୍କର ଇଏ ନେଇଛନ୍ତି ଛେଳି ନେଇଛନ୍ତି ତେଣୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ମଦ ବିରୋଧୀ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ଚାଲିଲା ବନ୍ଧୁଗାଁ କୋଉଠାରେ ସେତେବେଳେ ଲୋକ ସେମାନେ ବି ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ୍ସ ମାନଙ୍କୁ ବି ମଦ ଛଡେଇ ଦେଲେ ରିଚୁଆଲ ବ୍ୟତିରକି ପିଲାଚିଲାଇଙ୍ଗା ନେତୃତ୍ୱରେ ଆପଣମାନେ ଏଇଟା ରେକର୍ଡେଡ ଦ୍ୱିତୀୟ କଥା ହେଲା ତାପରେ ସେମାନେ ଜମି ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ କଲେ ଏବଂ ଜମି ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନରେ 2009-2010 ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଚାଲିଲା ଗଦାଧର ବାବୁ ନିଜେ କଲେକ୍ଟର ଥିଲେ ସେଠି ସେ ଜମି ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି ତେଣୁ ଦିଟା ଯାକ ଯୋଉ ମହାଜନୀ କାରବାରଟା ହଉଛି ଅନଲାଇନ ନେଇଯାଇଛି ଏ ମଦ ଦେଇକିରି ମଦ ବେପାରୀ ତେଣୁ ଦିଟା ଯାକ ଯୋଉ କଥା ଆସିଛି ଏବଂ ଆପଣ ଜାଣିବେ ଯେ ବିଜୁ ପଟ୍ଟନାୟକଙ୍କ ସମୟରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଯେ ଗୋଟେ ବେନ୍ ହେଲା ଯେ ଟ୍ରାଇବାଲ୍ସ ଏରିଆରେ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ମଦ ତିଆରି ହେଇପାରିବ ନାହିଁ ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କର କମ୍ୟୁନିଟି ବେସ୍ଡ ଯାହା ଦରକାର ତାଙ୍କର ଦରକାର ତାଙ୍କ ଟ୍ରାଡିସନାଲ ଯାହା ୱି କ୍ୟାନ୍ ସେ आम तो बंद कर कनसियसली निजे ठीक करेंगे से कि दुईटा जाक यहाँ हूँ बड़ विपद। और तृतीय कथा हूँ जिनटा को केमी आम केमी देखुचे कारण आप देखिए जो दिन से आपण मान ट्राइबल्स मान जेल रखागला आंदोलन भांगी दिगला तापर मद आरंभ है कारण समस्त नेट नथिले मद पेपर चली गले। मुझे रेकर्ड कहूँ जे नानपाटना पुलिस स्टेशन रे 90% केस मद पीकरी मरा मरी ग्रहण होता से भी कमी जाइए हिस्टोरिकल रेकर्ड। तो आम कह कथा जो सब जिन मदटा हूँ एक्सप्लॉइटेशन गोटे बड़ क्राइटेरिया। महाजनी तो एवरीबॉडी नोस दैट ये तो समस्त एक्सप्लॉइट कर सारा परजा ठू आरंभ करी गोपीनाथ संतान सब लिखाई।
Anyone else?
अच्युत बाबू का व्यू कौन?
अच्युत बाबू कुछ कहबे ए विषय रे?
ओडिसा रे मद मुक्ति आंदोलन चली किंतु गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसी एक्साइज पॉलिसी को क्रिटिकली देखिबार अछि। विजु पट्टनायक समय रे आदिवासी माँ माने दाबी करथिले जे मद बंद हो और विजु पट्टनायक गोटे फारसाइट थिला माने से मद बंद करथिले मद विरोधी आंदोलन को समर्थन करथिले किंतु एबे माने मद दुकान खोला चली देशी मद विदेशी मद आदिवासी एरिया रे मद दुकान खोलवाटा गोटे बिजनेस हो जाए। तेणु मद मुक्ति आंदोलन जो मैंने लड़ी थे ना भी केस फेस हो जाए डर भय भी करा तेणु मु भावुँ ए विषय गोटे माने कंक्रीट पॉलिसी गवर्नमेंट को नवा पड़ो जदि आदिवासी एरिया रे मद गोटे सब अनर्थर मूल कारण if it is the root of all problems then should we have a should we encourage liquor shops in tribal areas? This is one question. About money lending महाजनी कारबार मु भावुँ एटा महाजनी कारबारटा कमी जाइए सो कॉल्ड साहूकार गोपी महांती लिखिथिले सेटा कमी जाइए कारण लोक मानकर एक्सेस टू क्रेडिट टा अन्य बाटे भिन्न बाटे बढ़ी किंतु सबुठु बड़ माने ये माने ये कथा माने दुखर कथा जे महाजनी कारबार बंद हेले भी बर्तमान महाजन मानकर बड़ बापा दे हैव कम टू ट्राइबल एरियाज ताने मनी लेंडर्स माने ट्रेडिशनल मनी लेंडर साहूकार दैट इंस्टीट्यूशन इज आई थिंक मोर और लेस मिनिमाइज्ड but greater money lenders have come. So who are these greater money lenders? You can look at the political economy of tribal areas. Then you can understand how a different kind of money lending system has been introduced very, very intelligently, very strategically. So we have to really be awake to these issues. And it is a matter of policies. And the government policy has to be very clear on these two issues about liquor as well as money lending. There is a Money Lending Act. You will be very surprised to know if you look at the history of tribal Odisha, there will be only countable number of cases under the Money Lending Act. So how you can see the money lenders have been patronized? This is what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. It's almost 9 o'clock. Anyone else have any urgent questions? Dr. Omkar Mahanti.
So let us conclude.
Dr. Omkar Mahanti. We are fortunate to have Dr. I can see she's the daughter of Gopinath Mahanti. Apon kichh kohibe? Unmute. You can unmute yourself now.
I know I did.
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
आज्ञा मु निजे एई अच्युतंकर संस्थार टिके निजे माने संश्लिष्ट अछि आ एठी आमे गोटे जो छोटिया छोटिया ग्रुप सब चेष्टा करूछु टिके ओडिशा ପାଇଁ କିଛି କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ବି ସେଇଥିରେ ଆଉ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ମୁଁ କହିବା କଥା ଯେ ମୁଁ ନିଜ ଆଖିରେ ବି ଦେଖି ଆସିଛି ଯାହା ସେ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ଯାହା କରିବାକୁ ଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ଇଟ୍ସ ଏ ଗୁଡ୍ ଆଇଡିଆସ୍ ଆଉ ସ୍ପେଶାଲି ଦ ଦେଖିକି ଆସି ବହୁତ ଖୁସି ଲାଗିଲା ସମସ୍ତେ ଫାର୍ମିଂ ହବନି ବେସିକ ସ୍କୁଲ ରୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଟିକେ କେୟାର ବହୁତ କିଛି କରିପାରିବା ସେତିକି ଆଉ କିଛି ନାହିଁ
Thank you. ଆପଣ ବହୁତ ସକାଳୁ ଆମେରିକା ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସକାଳ 6ଟା 7ଟା ହେଇଥିବ ଏତେ ସକାଳୁ ଜଏନ୍ କରିଛନ୍ତି ସେଥିପାଇଁ ବହୁତ ବହୁତ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ
Thank you.
Anyone else? I can see Advocate Mrinalini Padi. There was a lot of questions about legal constitutional rights and legal rights and how is it being implemented. Dr. Padi, would you like to say something? Mr. Padi, Mrs. Padi. Okay, anyone else? Okay, now,
if nobody
would like to say anything?
Excuse me, if nobody has got any questions, I have one comment to make, if I am permitted. Achut Das here. Can I?
Yes, please, Achut.
Actually, if you look at, all these issues, I think how you are visualizing, I must praise Odisha government for only one issue, which is very relevant in the present context of food security. Odisha Millet Mission. Odisha Millet Mission. Millet.
Millet. Yes.
All these ragi, mandia, kangu, kosala, all these millets were really getting vanished because of the cash crops, because of tribals are getting displaced from their own agriculture, own farming. But suddenly this Odisha Millet Mission, I think, has given a new impetus to grow their traditional crops. I have been to places like Keonjhar and even some other tribal districts, like in Kanamar, part of Kanamar. People have completely forgotten their mandia, their ragi. So I was asking what happened. So they were saying that 30-40 years back, their mothers and grandmothers were giving them mandia pejo, the ragi cruel, ragi porridge. But now everything is gone out of cropping pattern. So fortunately, I think we have to really give this credit to government of Odisha. This is very, very significant development in last 3 years or so. 72 blocks have been covered. And the ragi, not only ragi, there are other millets like foxtail millet, like sorghum. These have got high value for the tribals. This is their culture. So they are coming back. So I think this is what I want to comment. If we are looking at food security, livelihood security, these are the issues which we have to take together, whether it is government or civil society or panchayat or even corporate. They all have to come converge on this issue. Thank you.
It's very valuable.
Thank you. I think it's a very important issue. I was surprised that no one else had raised it because the so-called millets, coarse millets, which are really the tribal people used to have them as their daily diet. They're now being considered a superfood. India mission on grains and things like mandia or ragi is considered to be one of the richest source of calcium. We have Mr. Arvind Padi with us. He is involved with the not only agriculture ministry but also the Central Research Institute, Hyderabad millets. I'm sure he is quite aware of it, and this is something that I think can help improve the economic status of the tribals very much, because they can get into coarse millets and thereby improve their own thing. Because world is now waking up to the health benefits of these products, which earlier were thought to be only for the underprivileged people. Anyway, thank you very much for a lovely discussion. I will now request our Vice President, Mr. Amarinder Khatua, to sum up the discussion and propose a vote of thanks. Ambassador Khatua.
Thank you. The discussion serves basically three purposes. All of us who are from Orissa must be aware of the problems. One of the largest constituent.
Khatua, just turn your phone a little. It's coming sideways.
I'll take it off because due to a aligned webinar, this has come like that. Tomorrow I'll correct it. I'll just take it off.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Almost 22% of Oriya population are tribal. 43% of these tribals are working in the non-tribal environs today. 80% of tribal women are working in agriculture. When we are talking about sustainable livelihood or development, we must understand that the tribal base has 5 industries: mining, forestry, agriculture, animal husbandry, and water. These ones are the models of development. As pointed out by Samantra Babu, Mr. Parida, friend Achyut Babu, and Mr. Jojo, with whom we have worked a paper on migrant labor, where we are calculating how much tribal are working outside Odisha. Few issues come clearly. One, government is aware of these problems. 2, adequate funds are available. 3, not many, but few NGOs and civil society are working in the field. 4, now time has come, all these organizations have to be coordinated in a proper manner. 5th, government of Orissa, because tribes form such an important part of the population, must train bureaucrats. It's like specifically on tribal issues. The gap bureaucrats or tenure bureaucrats will not help. They understand, they do their best. But specifically, we must work out a model of administration which will help. Say, for example, we are talking about microcredit. We are talking about cooperative movement. We are talking about availability of money to the tribals in their villages. We are talking about displaced tribals because the mining projects will come. Development will not let all these things like mining, forestry, agriculture, animal husbandry untouched. Therefore, how to coordinate this and bring sustainability for development of tribals. I thank all the participants. This was a terrific discussion, and I think based on this, all of us who watched this, who participated in this, have lots to contribute. Whether it is a bureaucrat, whether it is a retired bureaucrat, whether it is diaspora Odia, whether it is civil society, whether it is women leadership, or a researcher, everybody can contribute to the betterment of tribals and also make aware the dilemmas of development which is affecting the tribal culture. Thank you.
Thank you, and
Thank you.
good night to all of you.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you for having this discussion.
I hope all of us are going
Thank you very
back
much.
with a little more empathy for the tribal population, and integration, assimilation is the way to go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.